Tural Ganjali is a member of parliament of the Republic of Azerbaijan, and he joins me now live from the Azerbaijani capital, Baku. Great to have you here with us on TRT World. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is perhaps the second time the Azerbaijani president has said that peace with Armenia is closer than ever before. He made similar comments about a month ago,
yes,
around March. I wonder, what do you think has led him to make such remarks?
Yeah, you know, today, President of Azerbaijan delivered very important, crucial message, shedding light onto the post-conflict situation and speaking about the normalization of relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And he said that Armenia and Azerbaijan has never been so close to sign a peace treaty between our nations. Unfortunately, during 30 years when we endured the ongoing occupation, Armenian occupation against us, it was impossible to speak about the peace treaty. But now we have a momentum. Azerbaijan and its leader, we are very strong enough to carry out, to implement the policy that we have planned in the South Caucasus. And it's about time that we signed a peace treaty with Armenia. Yes, we hope that this peace treaty will be signed very soon. But unfortunately, also we have to speak about the spoilers, the main powers behind Armenia, who are not willing to let Armenia to sign a peace treaty. For example, we can speak the destructive role played by France since the end of the war in the Caucasus 3 years ago. France has been acting negatively, affecting Armenia, fueling revanchist forces in Armenia against Azerbaijan. But, you know, the political steps and decisions taken by the government of Azerbaijan compelled not only Armenia, but also its important allies to understand the situation on the ground, because without Azerbaijan, without its will, without the position of Azerbaijan taken into account, there cannot be any policy carried out in the South Caucasus. So we are very strong. We have a strong economy, strong army. We have very strong leader. But it doesn't mean that we use it to the detriment of the political situation in the South Caucasus. We proposed Armenia from day one when we ended the war to sign a peace treaty, but unfortunately Armenia, under the pretext of some excuses, refused to sign a peace treaty. But you know, the situation is now developed into a level that Armenia cannot step back, because if you would like to see a prosperous, durable peace in the South Caucasus, you have to sign a peace treaty. By the way, you know, concerning the Turkey-Armenia relations, Armenia for many, many years tried to separate the issue of normalization of relations between Turkey and Armenia from the relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. But we have to say that this normalization between Turkey and Armenia and Azerbaijan-Armenia must be implemented parallelly. So you cannot separate these relations from another, because we have to take the whole picture in the South Caucasus into consideration, because you cannot separate these aspects from one another.
Mr. Ganjali, fascinating insights. As I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, what you just said is if it were left to Armenia, if it were up to Armenia only, Armenia alone, peace would have been achieved between the two countries long ago. But it's because of countries like France we are not where we should have been long ago, especially in the wake of 2020 Karabakh war, in which Azerbaijan came victorious. So my question is, to what extent do you think countries like France are to be blamed when it comes to bringing turmoil between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
Yes, you are absolutely right, because 3 years ago when we ended this war, it was, first of all, it was Azerbaijan who extended its hand of peace to Armenia, and we proposed Armenia a peace draft, the first ever peace draft in the history of our relations. Armenia, you know, brought about some excuses, but we knew that there are forces behind Armenia, mainly France, who negatively affected and who compelled Armenia not to sign a peace treaty, because by liberating our lands from occupation, we have been able also to prevent France to meddling into the internal affairs of Azerbaijan, into internal affairs of Armenia, because France has been using the occupied territories of Azerbaijan, the so-called junta regime in Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, by its malign political purposes. But we have been able to to stop this intervention. So France has tried its policy, blackmailing campaign against Azerbaijan using different methods. Currently, we are seeing the attack by France, by French politicians, also using some different European platforms. For example, the European Parliament, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe against Azerbaijan. As President also spoke today about some powers trying to establish dividing lines in the South Caucasus, preventing Armenia and Azerbaijan come together, sit together and sign a peace treaty. So if it was left only to Armenia, of course we would have achieved this peace treaty many years ago. But unfortunately, yes, you are right that France has been the main spoiler in this in the policy in the South Caucasus.
Right, and Mr. Ganjali, I wonder what would you say about the Armenian diaspora? Because as I understand, it seems to me that the diaspora is very much involved in the internal affairs of Armenia, especially when it comes to fostering peace in the region. So to what extent do you think responsibility when it comes to fostering peace can be attributed to the Armenian diaspora?
Yes, unfortunately, Armenian diaspora has always played also a very negative role in the history of, at least in the independent history of the Republic of Armenia. Armenian diaspora has always influenced the governments of Armenia. And the most radical part of the Armenian society is the Armenian diaspora. Even, for example, if it was left to the Armenian government, it would also be very easy to find a common language to bring closer our relations with Armenia. But Armenian diaspora has always affected Armenian government because, you know, Armenian diaspora has very strong ties in different countries of the world, mainly in France and in the United States. And they are using their resources to manipulate with the politicians in these countries and also trying to manipulate through these politicians the government of Armenia. So I think that Armenian diaspora must also understand the new reality on the ground. Unfortunately, yes, this kind of politics played by the Armenian diaspora, I think that the main victim of this policy it must be accepted, must be acknowledged, the Republic of Armenia itself. Because the government of Armenia must do its best not to be dependent of the Armenian diaspora because they always use Armenian government for their own purposes. But we will see. But again, the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan will end all of these manipulations. And I do hope that we will sign this peace treaty by the end of this year, which is 2024.
Tural Ganjali, thanks very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
The time.